There is a structure that challenges everything scientists think they know about ancient engineering, and it was built more than 3,000 years ago using technology so advanced that no one has been able to fully replicate it to this day. We're talking about 400-ton stones cut without explosives, moved without modern cranes, and fitted together with millimeter precision in total silence, because God commanded that no sound of metal tools be heard at the sacred site. The Temple of Solomon had 27 tons of pure gold gleaming on its walls. That's equivalent to around 2 billion reais in gold alone. And when it was inaugurated, something so supernatural happened that priests who had trained their entire lives fell to their knees, unable to remain standing. The question that refuses to go away is this: how did a primitive civilization manage to accomplish something that would still be challenging even with our current technology? You're about to uncover secrets from the Bible that will turn your understanding upside down. In this video, you'll learn how 80,000 men cut massive rocks using only wood and water in an ancient technique lost to time, why Solomon paid a huge annual fortune in wheat and olive oil to import cedar from Lebanon across the Mediterranean Sea, and what happened when the visible glory of God descended with such power that the entire temple was filled with a supernatural cloud. I'll show you the colossal details that make this work the most impossible construction ever recorded in history. 8-meter-high bronze columns, monumental gold cherubim, and the coordination of 150,000 workers over 7 years without delays, all of it guided by the wisdom God himself gave to Solomon. But there's one detail scholars tend to hide, and you need to know it. This construction proves that there was advanced knowledge in ancient times that challenges our evolutionary timeline. If you want to uncover the mysteries of the Bible that reveal impossible ancient technology, understand how biblical facts point to direct divine intervention, and see concrete evidence that great works done for God always receive his supernatural approval, then subscribe now, turn on the notification bell, and hold on tight, because your mind is about to be blown in the next few minutes.
Close your eyes for a second and try to imagine this. You're standing in front of a structure so absurdly grand that it makes any modern skyscraper look like a child's toy. Solomon's temple wasn't just a place of prayer. No, it was the most impossible, most insane, most challenging project the ancient world had ever seen. 30 meters tall. Think of a 10-story building, raised more than 3,000 years ago, when there were no cranes, no computers, nothing like that at all. And now comes the part that makes your jaw drop. The inner walls gleamed with 27 tons of pure gold. That's right, 27 tons. That's the weight of 6 African elephants, except made of solid gold, reflecting sunlight as if heaven itself had descended upon Jerusalem. The Holy Bible wasn't exaggerating when it described this in the Book of Kings. Every word was literal. Every detail was real. The mysteries of the Bible begin exactly here, at the point where you look at the facts and think, this can't be real, but it happened. Now hold on to that thought, because this will blow your mind. The foundations were made of stones weighing up to 400 tons each. 400 tons. Take 80 compact cars, stack them all together, and turn that into a single massive stone. That's what we're talking about. Researchers from a Hebrew university went there, measured, analyzed, and confirmed it. These stones still exist today on the Temple Mount, and no one, and I mean no one, can fully explain how this was done. You know, the famous stone of Baalbek in Lebanon, which weighs about 1,000 tons and drives everyone crazy trying to understand how it was moved. Well, Solomon's temple had hundreds of smaller, but still colossal, stones, fitted together with surgical precision that would make a modern engineer cry with envy. The secrets of the Bible reveal an ancient technology that simply should not have existed at that time. And here's another mind-bending detail. 80,000 men worked only on extracting those monstrous stones. 80,000 people. That's more people than the entire population of the city of Petropolis. All focus on pulling gigantic rocks out of the ground. But wait, it gets better. These men had no dynamite, no jackhammers, none of the tools we rely on today. So what did they do? They drilled strategic holes into the rock, inserted wooden wedges, and soaked them with water. The wood swelled and swelled and swelled, and boom! The pressure reached up to 1,000 psi. Enough force to crack granite like a cookie. And the craziest part, all of this happened in almost complete silence because the sacred rule forbade the sound of iron tools at the construction site. Picture the scene, 80,000 men working, and all you hear is the creaking of wood and the sharp crack of stone splitting apart. The curiosities of the Bible show that God inspired not only a spiritual work, but also an engineering project that defies everything we know. To this day, scientists scratch their heads trying to understand how these people coordinated everything without WhatsApp, without radios, without even proper paper to draw a decent technical plan. Each 400-ton stone had to be cut to the exact size, the exact shape, with precise markings showing where it would fit. One mistake? That's it. Months of work wasted, and people crushed to death when they tried to move it. Israeli archaeologists discovered markings on the ancient stones that worked like a secret code. Symbols indicating which team made the stone, where it fit, and in what order it should be placed. It was a project management system that would put even today's high-tech construction companies to shame. The biblical facts about this impossible construction force you to stop and think. What kind of knowledge was this that was lost over time? What did these ancient people know that we forgot? And then comes a detail that changes everything. This unexplainable engineering wasn't luck. It wasn't an accident. Solomon, the man the Bible calls the wisest who ever walked the earth, had access to knowledge that made no sense for his era. Some archaeologists believe it came from Egyptian pyramid-building techniques. After all, the Israelites spent centuries in Egypt. Other scientists suggest a lost science from the Bronze Age that mastered complex structural calculations as if they were simple. But the biblical truth is clear. God gave Solomon supernatural wisdom, and the result was a work that, when its data is entered into modern engineering software, shows everything was perfectly optimized. Biblical curiosities prove that there was a divine purpose in every centimeter, every calculation, every choice of material. And trust me, you haven't seen anything yet, because transporting those stones, that was a deadly journey that will leave you breathless. Now comes the part that will send chills from head to toe. How do you move a 400-ton stone for kilometers without trucks, without cranes, without anything modern at all? The answer is so brutal, so inhumane, that you'll need to take a deep breath. 70,000 men, 70,000, were assigned exclusively to the suicidal task of transporting these monstrous blocks from the quarries to the Temple Mount. Picture it. Massive dirt ramps being built. Huge tree trunks used as rollers under the stones and thick plant fiber ropes, some over 20 centimeters in diameter, being pulled by hundreds of men sweating, bleeding, and crying. The mysteries of the Bible include not only the grandeur of Solomon's temple, but also the brutal human cost paid for every square meter of that sacred structure. The Holy Bible doesn't hide it. This was a work of extreme sacrifice, where the line between devotion to God and human survival was as thin as a strand of hair. And you know what's even worse? This wasn't safe, it wasn't controlled. It was simply deadly. Ropes snapped under the immense pressure, and when they did, the whip-like recoil tore men apart like rag dolls. Stones slipped off the rollers and rolled uncontrollably downhill, crushing dozens of workers in the blink of an eye. Recent studies in experimental archaeology have tried to replicate these techniques on a smaller scale and found something shocking. Even with our modern understanding of physics and engineering, the rate of fatal accidents in simulations was extremely high. Now multiply that by 70,000 men working at the same time for years on end. A single 400-ton block took weeks, sometimes up to a full month, just to travel a miserable 5 kilometers. Think about that. A month of brutal labor, daily deaths, sweat and blood spilled, all to move a stone a distance you can drive in 5 minutes today. The secrets of the Bible reveal that building the temple wasn't just an architectural miracle. It was also an extreme test of human endurance. But hold on, because here things get even heavier and more unfair. The workers were divided into 2 completely different categories, and that difference was a line between a tolerable life and hell on earth. The Israelites worked in rotating shifts, 1 month breaking their backs hauling stones, then 2 months at home with their families to recover. Was it hard? Of course it was. But at least there was rest, there was hope, there was a return home. Now the Canaanites, those poor souls faced uninterrupted forced labor for the entire 7 years of construction. 7 years waking up every day knowing it might be your last. 7 years watching friends die beside you. 7 years without seeing your family, without rest, without hope. The curiosities of the Bible show that Solomon, even as the wisest man of his time, ruled within the brutal practices of that era, practices that today we would call slave labor without hesitation. Biblical facts like that, sometimes uncomfortable, but always real. Scientists who study this logistics are genuinely baffled trying to understand how it didn't collapse into total chaos. Think about the complexity. 70,000 men had to be fed every single day. That means tons of food arriving day after day without fail. They needed drinkable water in industrial quantities under the scorching sun of Jerusalem. They needed tools constantly replaced. Ropes snapped, logs cracked, rams collapsed. Researchers from Tel Aviv University calculated that the supply logistics of Solomon's temple alone were equivalent to sustaining a medium-sized city for 7 years. And all of this was managed with primitive communication systems. No phones, no radios, probably just messengers running back and forth. Some archaeologists believe there were flag systems and visual signals to coordinate movements, while other scientists debate whether drums and horns were used to set rhythm and synchronize the pulling of the ropes. The impossible ancient technology wasn't only in the stones. It was also in a human orchestration of a living machine made up of 70,000 moving parts. And there's a detail hardly anyone talks about, but it's absolutely fascinating. This brutal transport operation created a network of roads and ramps that completely transformed the geography around Jerusalem. Archaeological evidence shows remnants of these ancient transport routes, some with deep grooves carved into the rock, where the rolling logs pass again and again. Solomon's temple didn't just change the city skyline. It changed the land itself, sculpted mountains, and created paths that still influence modern streets in Jerusalem today. Biblical curiosities reveal that great works of God leave permanent marks not only on people's souls, but on physical geography itself. Every drop of sweat spilled, every life lost, every stone moved was shaping not just a temple, but the destiny of an entire nation. And you think getting and transporting the stones was already impossible enough? Wait until you find out where the wood that lined this colossal structure came from. Now hold on, because the story gets even more epic. Obtaining the stones was only the beginning, because Solomon wanted the very best of the best to line the interior of the temple, and that meant Lebanese cedar, the most noble and expensive wood of the ancient world. Imagine a wood so valuable that kings went to war to gain access to it, so aromatic that its scent lasted for centuries, so durable that it could endure for millennia without rotting. The mysteries of the Bible include this astonishing detail. Solomon couldn't just go to a building supply store and ask for delivery. No, he had to negotiate with Hiram, the king of Tyre, in one of the most expensive trade agreements in ancient history. And look at the price he paid. 20,000 cores of wheat and 20,000 baths of olive oil every year. To give you a sense of scale, that's roughly 4.4 million liters of wheat and 4.4 million liters of pure olive oil each year throughout the construction. The Holy Bible records this commercial agreement with surgical precision, showing that the impossible construction of Solomon's temple was also an unprecedented international logistics project. But wait, it gets better or worse, depending on how you look at it. Hiram wasn't about to send the wood as a gift, right? Solomon had to send 10,000 Israelites to Lebanon to work in the cedar forests, cutting, processing, and preparing the massive logs. 10,000 men far from home, far from their families, working in foreign territory under Phoenician supervision. And here comes a detail that might shock you. These men also worked in a rotating shift system, 1 month in Lebanon, sweating in the mountains cutting trees, then 2 months at home. Recent historical studies reveal that this was a brilliant diplomatic move by Solomon because it avoided social tension by keeping Israelite workers rotating. But don't fool yourself into thinking it was easy. The cedar forests were located in the Lebanese mountains at elevations where the air is thin. The cold is biting in winter and the heat is suffocating in summer. The secrets of the Bible show that God provided not only the design, but also the political alliances needed to make the impossible possible. Now comes the part that will leave you speechless. How do you transport gigantic cedar logs, some over 30 meters long and weighing several tons, from the mountains of Lebanon to Jerusalem? The answer is a journey so insane it sounds like the plot of an adventure movie. First, the logs were dragged down the mountains to the Mediterranean coast. And dragged is a gentle euphemism, because in reality it was a deadly operation where logs would break loose and roll uncontrollably, crushing everything in their path. Then the Phoenicians, absolute masters of ancient navigation, tied the logs together into enormous rafts and transported them by SEA to the port of Joppa on the coast of Israel. Its researchers from the Maritime University of Haifa studied these routes and confirmed it. About 200 kilometers of sea travel, exposed to storms, treacherous waves, and the ever-present risk of losing the entire cargo to the bottom of the Mediterranean. Biblical facts reveal that this was not just a construction project. It was a multinational logistical expedition of epic proportions. But hold on, it's still not over. Once they arrived in Joppa, the logs had to be transported by land to Jerusalem, another 60 kilometers uphill through mountainous, uneven terrain. Imagine dragging 30-meter logs weighing several tons across hills, valleys, and rocky paths. Each log took weeks to complete this final journey. And here's the chilling detail. Many workers died during this process, from exhaustion, from accidents, from diseases contracted along the way. The Bible does not romanticize this or hide the human cost. Biblical curiosities include this hard truth. Great works for God have always required great human sacrifice, and Solomon's temple was built literally on the sweat, blood, and tears of thousands. Some archaeologists believe the mortality rate among cedar workers was even higher than among stone haulers, because the journeys were longer and working at high elevations in the Lebanese mountains was extremely dangerous. Scientists debate whether there was any form of compensation for the families of those who died, but historical records on this are scarce. And there is one final layer to this story that simply cannot be ignored. Lebanese cedar carried a meaning that went far beyond aesthetic beauty or physical durability. In antiquity, cedar was considered the wood of the gods. The Egyptians used it to build sacred ships and pharaoh sarcophagi. The Mesopotamians made temple doors from it, and its aroma was used in purification rituals. When Solomon lined the interior of God's temple with Lebanese cedar, he was making a powerful theological statement. This is a place where the Creator of the universe dwells, and only the very best is worthy. Biblical curiosities show us that every material choice carried deep spiritual meaning. Cedar does not rot easily, symbolizing the eternity of God. Its scent is strong and long-lasting, symbolizing the constant presence of the divine. Its reddish color evokes sacrifice and atonement. Studies by modern theologians reveal layer upon layer of symbolism embedded in every construction decision. And you think hauling 400-ton stones and importing cedar from Lebanon was already enough? Wait until you discover the most insane rule of this entire project. Now pay close attention, because this is the part that will leave you absolutely speechless. God gave Solomon an order that defied all construction logic. No sound of iron tools was allowed to be heard on the Temple Mount. The Holy Bible records this divine requirement with absolute clarity, and Solomon obeyed it to the letter. Picture the scene. A construction site the size of 2 soccer fields where you hear no hammering, no sawing, absolutely nothing except the reverent whispers of men at work. The mysteries of the Bible reveal that this wasn't just a technical rule. It was a profound theological statement. The place where the Holy of Holies would rise had to be built in peaceful silence, without the violence of metal striking stone. Every block arrived perfectly shaped from the quarries, with engraved markings showing its exact position, like pieces of divine puzzle weighing hundreds of tons. Modern researchers are baffled trying to understand how they achieved millimeter-level precision without making adjustments on site. It was like assembling a gigantic Lego set where every piece fit perfectly on first try, guided by a blueprint that God himself had revealed to Solomon through dreams and visions. And just when you think you've seen magnificence, comes the part that literally blinds your eyes and takes your breath away. The entire interior of Solomon's temple was overlaid with 27 tons of pure gold beaten into thin sheets. 27 tons. To grasp the scale of this opulence, that's roughly the equivalent of about 2 billion raised in today's values in raw gold alone, without even counting the handcrafted labor of hammering each sheet by hand until it was as thin as paper. Biblical curiosities describe that it wasn't just the walls. The floor was covered in gold, the ceiling was gold, The doors were solid gold. You literally walked on gold, looked up and saw gold, touched the walls and felt pure gold beneath your hands. The secrets of the Bible reveal the purpose behind this divine extravagance. Gold does not stain, does not oxidize, and never corrupts. It represents the eternal, incorruptible purity of God. Metallurgical studies analyzed fragments and discovered something shocking. The purity was 99.9%, a level of refinement that would be exceptional even with modern technology. God would accept nothing less than absolute perfection. But wait, there's so much more to the story of gold and splendor. Solomon brought in Hiram, the greatest master metalworker of the ancient world, a Phoenician from Tyre whose reputation as an artisan transcended borders and generations. This man was simply the authority when it came to working precious metals and bronze. God had given Solomon the wisdom to recognize extraordinary talent, and Hiram was extraordinary beyond measure. He crafted the two monumental bronze pillars that stood at the entrance of the temple, Jachin and Boaz, each 8 meters tall and weighing an astonishing 34 tons of solid bronze. 8 meters is the height of a 3-story building. And these pillars were decorated with bronze pomegranates, finely worked chains, and lily-shaped capitals so detailed they looked as if they had been carved by divine hands. Biblical records tell us that Jachin means he establishes, and Boaz means in him is strength. The very names of the pillars were a theological declaration cast in solid bronze. God establishes, and in him is all strength. Hiram's impossible ancient technology allowed these colossal pieces to be cast without structural flaws, without bubbles, without cracks, something that would require furnaces maintaining temperatures above 1,000 degrees Celsius for hours on end. And there's a detail that sends chills from head to toe. Inside the Holy of Holies, the most sacred chamber of the temple, where only the high priest could enter once a year, God instructed Solomon to place 2 monumental cherubim, each 4.5 meters tall, carved from olive wood and completely overlaid with gold. 4.5 meters tall, that's almost the height of a full-grown giraffe. These cherubim had their wings outstretched, touching the side walls of the Holy of Holies, and meeting in the center, forming a protective canopy over the Ark of the Covenant. Biblical curiosities reveal that these were not cute little baby angels. They were majestic and intimidating representations of celestial guardians, reminiscent of those who guarded the Garden of Eden with flaming swords. Imagine stepping into that dark chamber lit only by oil lamps, with those 2 massive golden figures seeming to come alive in the flickering light, their wings casting dramatic shadows on the golden walls. The presence of God dwelled literally between those wings, above the ark, and the atmosphere was so intensely reverent that the air itself seemed to weigh heavy. And here's the final detail that ties all this impossible magnificence together. Hiram also created the Bronze Sea, a gigantic basin that was simply the largest cast bronze object in the ancient world. This thing measured 4.5 meters in diameter, 2.25 meters in height, and held 40,000 liters of water. 40,000 liters. That's the equivalent of an entire residential swimming pool made of solid bronze, supported by 12 bronze oxen, arranged with 3 facing each cardinal direction. The mysteries of the Bible reveal the deep symbolism. The 12 oxen represented the 12 tribes of Israel bearing the spiritual purification of the people. The sea represented God's dominion over all the waters of creation, and bronze symbolized judgment and strength. Researchers calculate that this single piece weighed over 30 tons when empty. Add 40 tons of water, and you're looking at 70 tons of total weight resting on 12 sculptures. The advanced engineering required to calculate weight distribution, structural resistance, and casting on such a monumental scale simply should not have existed 3,000 years ago. But God guided every detail, every measurement, every material choice, and the result was a work that proclaimed loud and clear, "Here dwells the creator of the universe, and everything in this place reflects his infinite glory." Now we reach the most epic, most supernatural, most chill-inducing moment of this entire 7-year journey. The inauguration of Solomon's temple and the visible manifestation of the glory of God. But before we get there, you need to understand the absolutely colossal dimensions of this construction that was finally complete. The main temple measured 27 meters in length, 9 meters in width, and 13.5 meters in height. It sounds modest until you realize these were only the dimensions of the central building. The entire temple complex included 3-story side chambers, vast courtyards, the entrance portico with a depth of 4.5 meters, and the Holy of Holies, which was a perfect cube measuring 9 meters in every direction, a sacred geometry symbolizing the absolute perfection of God. The Holy Bible records every measurement with divine precision because God himself had given the detailed design to Solomon, just as he had given Moses a design of the tabernacle centuries earlier. The mysteries of the Bible reveal that nothing was random. Every proportion, every dimension, every angle carried deep theological meaning. And there are internal details that will absolutely blow your mind once you grasp the level of artistic complexity involved. God instructed Solomon to decorate literally everything with carvings of cherubim, palm trees, open flowers, and interwoven chains, all carved into the cedar before the gold was applied. Imagine the scene. You look at any wall of the temple and see detailed three-dimensional reliefs of angels, trees, and flowers, all gleaming in gold under the light of oil lamps and lampstands. Biblical curiosities describe that even the doors had carvings of cherubim and palm trees overlaid with gold, and they swung on hinges made of solid gold. The secrets of the Bible reveal the symbolism. The cherubim represented the heavenly presence. The palm trees symbolized victory and eternal life. The flowers represented beauty and divine creation. You couldn't look anywhere without being reminded of the majesty of God. Scholars of ancient art study these biblical descriptions and are stunned by the level of detail. We're talking about thousands of hours of handcrafted work in aromatic Lebanese cedar, each carving then carefully covered with sheets of beaten gold. But now comes a detail few people know, and it is absolutely fascinating. God gave specific instructions about the sacred utensils that were to be inside the temple, and Solomon carried them out with supernatural perfection. There were 10 lampstands of pure gold, not 7 like in the tabernacle, but 10, 5 on the right side and 5 on the left side of the holy place. Each lampstand weighed about 34 kilograms of solid gold and was artistically crafted with almond blossoms, buds, and petals carved into it. Biblical records also describe the table of the bread of the presence made of pure gold, the golden bowls, the golden basins, the golden wick trimmers. Everything, absolutely everything was pure gold or finely worked bronze. God had told Solomon, "Make everything according to the pattern I showed you," and Solomon did not spare a single gram in the execution. The impossible construction of the temple wasn't only in the stones and the wood. It was also in the thousands of sacred objects that made that place functional for divine worship. There were bronze basins for purification, golden censers for burning fragrant incense, and musical instrument of bronze, and wood for the Levites to worship. And finally, we arrive at the day that changed everything. The day the most impossible construction of antiquity was officially dedicated to God. Solomon summoned all Israel to Jerusalem. The priests brought the Ark of the Covenant in a solemn procession from the city of David, and when it was placed in the Holy of Holies beneath the wings of those monumental golden cherubim, the impossible happened. The Holy Bible describes it with words that send chills down your spine. Then the cloud filled the house of the Lord, so that the priests could not stand to minister because of the cloud, for the glory of the Lord filled the house of the Lord. The visible glory of God manifested as a cloud so dense, so heavy, so saturated with divine presence that priests trained their entire lives to minister simply could not stand. The mysteries of the Bible unfold in this transcendent moment. 7 years of brutal labor, fortune spent, the most magnificent work of the ancient world, and God places a seal of approval in such a dramatic and unmistakable way that no one could doubt it. This is where I dwell. But now comes a detail that few people know, and it is absolutely fascinating. God gave specific instructions about the sacred utensils that would be inside the temple, and Solomon carried them out with supernatural perfection. There were 10 lampstands of pure gold, not 7 as in the tabernacle, but 10, 5 on the right side and 5 on the left side of the holy place. Each lampstand weighed about 34 kilograms of solid gold, and was artistically crafted with almond blossoms, buds, and petals carved into it. Biblical records also describe the table of the bread of the presence made of pure gold, the golden bowls, the golden basins, the golden wick trimmers. Everything, absolutely everything was pure gold or finely worked bronze. God had told Solomon, "Make everything according to the pattern I showed you," and Solomon did not spare a single gram in the execution. The impossible construction of the temple was not only in the stones and the wood. It was also in the thousands of sacred objects that made that place functional for divine worship. There were bronze basins for purification, golden censers for burning fragrant incense, and musical instruments of bronze and wood for the Levites to worship. And finally, we arrive at the day that changed everything. The day the most impossible construction of antiquity was officially dedicated to God. Solomon summoned all Israel to Jerusalem. The priests brought the Ark of the Covenant in a solemn procession from the city of David, and when it was placed in the Holy of Holies beneath the wings of those monumental golden cherubim, the impossible happened. The Holy Bible describes it with words that send chills down your spine. Then the cloud filled the house of the Lord, so that the priests could not stand to minister because of the cloud, for the glory of the Lord filled the house of the Lord. The visible glory of God manifested as a cloud so dense, so heavy, so saturated with divine presence that priests trained their entire lives simply could not stand. The mysteries of the Bible unfold in this transcendent moment. 7 years of brutal labor, fortune spent, the most magnificent work of the ancient world, and God sealed his approval in such a dramatic and unmistakable way that no one could doubt it. This is the place where I dwell, and Solomon, the man whom God had chosen and endowed with supernatural wisdom, stood there before that glorious manifestation and offered one of the most beautiful and profound prayers ever recorded in human history. He said, "But will God indeed dwell on the earth? Behold, heaven and even the highest heaven cannot contain you. How much less this house that I have built?" What humility, what profound theological understanding. Solomon recognized that even that colossal temple, with its 27 tons of gold, 8-meter bronze pillars, monumental cherubim, and decoration beyond imagination, still was far too small to contain the infinite God of the universe. Biblical curiosities teach us that the temple was not God's house in the literal sense. It was a point of encounter between heaven and earth, the place where the infinite touched the finite, where the eternal communicated with the temporal. And God confirmed this by descending visibly in glory, declaring through that supernatural cloud, "Yes, Solomon, this place is worthy. This place is holy. Here I will put my name." The secrets of the Bible reveal that great works done for God always receive his visible approval in some way, and none was more dramatic than this manifestation in Solomon's temple, which forever marked the history of Israel and humanity. So tell me, did you really imagine that the construction of Solomon's temple was this colossal, this impossible, this advanced? Let me ask you something. Do you think this ancient advanced technology was purely human, or did it involve direct divine guidance? Could there be construction techniques lost to time that we still haven't rediscovered? And most importantly, what does the story of Solomon's temple teach you about doing things with absolute excellence when you're working for God? Leave your theory in the comments, because I love reading what you all think about these mysteries of the Bible. If this video blew your mind by revealing biblical curiosities you had never heard before, make sure to leave a like. That helps the channel grow and spread this knowledge to even more people. And look, if you thought this was impossible, you need to watch the next video. He was thrown into boiling oil and survived. The miracle of John explained. It's an even more mind-blowing story of divine intervention that will leave you absolutely speechless. Click it. I promise you, it's more than worth it. And don't forget, subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any videos about the secrets of the Bible, astonishing biblical facts, and truths that will strengthen your faith and expand your understanding. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. You're amazing, and I'll see you in the next video. God bless you.